So, what you're currently seeing is a recording of the newest episode of 12, where I'm actually going to handle most of the secret reports that was done in the game. We didn't really go into it on stream. There are 23 of them, only 21 I have access to, and that would be a lot to read on stream. So I'm going to try making a recording of it right now. But to unlock the 22nd of them, I need to go through some new content. I'm gonna say the final piece of this content for a stream, but let's go through it in this video too. Mr. Honeycomb? Wonder what he's up to out there. I think I'll follow him. This could be the chance to learn more about him, about cats. So this is taking place in another day, the Tin Pin Day, and I go to Pork City where we fought Sho Minamoto. This place seems familiar. Did he go upstairs? So let's read through one of the I say one. Let's actually go through these things. Yeah, I've had to do every single one of these challenges to be able to unlock this chapters. I read to including 7, if I recall correctly. So we'll see where I leave off. As is common knowledge, all games in the UG take place under our supervision. However, this particular game is saddled with a nigh unbelievable set of accentuating circumstances, catching the attention of the higher plane. Thus, I shall be taking a more hands-on role this time, as detailed in this report. The core differences of this game is as follows. 1. Its role in plans for Shibuya's destruction. 2. The composer's absence from the UG. 3. The resulting limitations to his powers. And 4. The game being played by a proxy. The composer has informed me of 2 major points: that he plans to destroy the UG, but also that his final decision will hinge on the outcome of his game with the conductor. A provisional rule for this game requires the composer to vacate the underground. It is unprecedented that for the composer to be absent during a game. I cannot predict what effect it may have. Furthermore, the composer must lower the frequency of his vibe to travel from the UG to the RG, inevitably curtailing his abilities. This makes investigating the conductor and his strategy incredibly difficult, as the composer is still the only one who knows who and what I am. So the one writing this report is Mr. Honeycomb himself. So Honeycomb seems to be from a higher plane, alongside Joshua and maybe the Reapers. It means lingering in the UG to other reports carries a lethal risk. The great randomizer in the current game is the use of a hand-picked proxy to compete against the conductor in the composer's stead. No information on this person exists at present. While the situation seems dire, I believe the key of getting ahead of all of this is at hand. You see, time always builds upon the past. I have already located our key. It's a pin request from the conductor. Normally, the psychic manifestation of the pins are determined by one's imagination. Thus, by analyzing the pin, the user's imaginations, or rather, their true intentions, are revealed. Unfortunately, this order came through the composer, and never came in contact with the conductor. Thus, I could not use it to determine the nature of his imagination. So, it seems like the way all these things work is by the limit of their imagination. So, the reason why Neko can use so many pins is because he has a great imagination, and why Shiki was only able to use the one pin to control her animal is because that's the only imagination she could come up with to control pins. I'm guessing. I too have lowered my vibe to tune into the UG, limiting my abilities. However, at this stage, realizing that this pin holds the key is sufficient. The possibility of forestalling the plans of the UG's destruction remain. So, Honeycomb is trying to prevent the Shibuya from being self-destructed. Next day is when we're working with Shiki again. As the game was set to end, I felt an intense burst of soul, and at this force I found the composer's handpicked proxy, one Neku Sakuraba. Let it be noted that once danger was passed, the soul he expelled rapidly tapered off. I shall define soul as it exists in the UG later, thank you. For now, let it suffice to say that it's the energy he bears within him. His unstable soul is the result of a rift between his body and emotional mind. This discord can be traced to a few causes. Number 1. His dense and all-inclusive soul composition. 2. Emotional confusion of inhibiting the unity of his emotional self and physical body. And 3. The exacerbation of that confusion by memory loss due to his entropy. However, anyone possessing such a diverse soul can become a formidable wielder of imagination. The composer was right to choose this boy. So, they're saying why his imagination was so great. It's because of his mental state and his soul. His soul was so unstable because his body and was just confused about who he is. And because of the loss of his memory. Like, a person that didn't lose his memory would not have a vivid, or as vivid of an imagination as Neku may have had. I'm guessing. Shibuya's fate may rest on how well he manages to stabilize his soul. To measure his stability, I gave him a harmonizer pin. It can only be used when he cooperates with his partner. Synchronizing with another hinges on his ability to first stabilize his own soul. Thus, successful use of the pin would indicate that he has made progress on that front. So that is how I'm using the fusion ability with my partner. When the only way to use it is by using attacks with my partner, and that increases the fusion gauge or sync rates. Further, he's able to push his and his partner's sync resonance through fusion, the greater his own internal ability will have become. The progress in his soul merits close observation henceforth. And now is the day when we try to kill the bats, and Beat and Shiki saves the day. Or Beat and Rhyme saves the day. Allow me to redefine the composer's role. As I continue to observe the game's progress, I have a clear view of the enormous effects of the composer's absence. A clear definition of his duties are key to understanding the extent of this distribution. The composer holds absolute authority over the underground. By authority, I mean the right to determine rules. He is the only one who can change the composition of the UG and the sole creator of this Shibuya. I feel like this Shibuya is very important because that makes it very clear that the Shibuya we are currently in Another Day is different from the Shibuya that we played all throughout this game. Which kind of was assumed by us seeing two Joshuas. That was a Joshua from this current Shibuya and the other Shibuya. While I'm guessing by the rules they made the rules of the games, like what rules applies during these and these days. The Underground Shibuya is created and organized by the composer's rules, which pit players against Reapers in a struggle for survival. A new composer only arises when the previous one is defeated. The victor takes the victim's place. At this juncture, the new composer rewrites the rules of the Underground Shibuya. However, there being no composer at all is a different situation. It means that the rules that make up the UG are invalid. In other words, without a composer, the Underground collapses. However, the composer's absence is still a secret. At present, only 3 people know: the composer himself, his opponent, the conductor, and the producer, me. The producer's role is that of guardian over the game. For observation purposes, he must sometimes ascend from the higher plane to the underground. Descend. While the producer is natively an entity from the higher plane, he can just adjust the frequency of his vibe to visit the UG and lowered planes. Think of a radio. Going from station A to station UG simply requires tuning in to a different frequency. The producer has the power to contact any and all beings in the underground. Okay, so yeah, this means there are multiple Shibuyas, but you can't observe all of them at once. You gotta tune into the right observation state to be able to observe certain Shibuyas. However, he is strictly prohibited from revealing his identity in the UG. His existence endangers the stability of the rulers and balance from the UG and RG. Thus, the producer's identity must stay a secret from Reapers and players. not to mention those in the RG. He may freely choose to contact only one person as a producer, that is the composer. So Hanekoma can only contact Joshua. That is his only means of contact. Did we ever see him outside of the store? Like, we're able to take a picture of Hanekoma. No. Hanekoma did appear with our fights on the second day with the Shiki and stopped us from killing her. So that is false. I'm guessing it's because he wanted to observe Neku. And now it is for the day when I believe Ryan dies. Again, rather. The UG exists as a separate plane where the composer can judge the worth of men. Within it are Reapers and human players. It is infeasible for the composer to judge all of humanity by himself. So a filtering system utilizing the Reapers was created. The Reapers game. Reapers act as a test, weeding out unfit players. Upon becoming a Reaper, one's physical body changes, gaining incredible strength and extended lifespan. So the Reaper game is essentially to say, okay, we are gonna give the select few a choice or another chance in life, but only those worthy. And the Reapers are the one deciding who is worthy and who is not by who can survive. As Reapers and players alike progress through the game, engaging in imagination-driven combat, their soul is refined. Soul is an abstract matter, revealed through our research into life and death, and a component in the makeup of the atmosphere, humans' will through thought, all phenomena. As Reapers execute the game, they undergo a process of evolution, from grunts to officers to the composer. So composer is the highest level of Reaper. And we have people like Kiria that is on a grunt level and could become an officer if he felt like it. However, Reapers that follow the ideal route are rare, and most are erased by players. So Reapers do still die at the hands of players. Reaper or player, those erased from the game disperse the mind and spirit housed within their flesh in the form of their soul. Thus, they are erased only from the visible existence. Their soul persists in the UG until gathered and tied together according to a new code. A new code is essentially imagination. Given sufficient imagination, any form is possible, be it a pin or a Reaper. So that is how Rhyme managed to stay alive. When she died, she became a new code which was Pin, and that could then again be rewritten back into human, I'm believing. And same with Beats. He essentially died in a soul and made himself be rewritten as a Reaper. Variation in this code caused the soul to manifest in different forms. In other words, humans, Reapers, and Noise are all entities formed from soul. But the only difference is their code. What are Noise? Entities without conscious will, only driven to multiply. Thus they constantly thirst for soul, attacking players and possessing humans in the real ground. So, the Noises we have fought is essentially living beings just losing their will, if I am reading this correctly. Soul consumed by Noise is destroyed, even if the Noise is erased. Thus, possessed humans often exhibit a rush of euphoria immediately after their Noise is removed. Though untested, the same would likely hold were a player or Reaper possessed. So yeah, whenever like the old man or like Shooter or Jay's fake British accent was possessed, whenever we cleared them off the possession, they kind of like sprung to life immediately and ran to their next objective. I don't quite remember what happened on this day. I think it's when we met the Ox for the first time. The real ground and underground are planes of existence. Other planes exist as well. The one inhabited solely by Noise, for example, or our customary plane. The planes are stacked in parallel, through each exists at a different frequency vibe, in tune of its inhabitants. Observing a lower plane from a higher plane is simple. Actual transplanar contact, while possible, is highly complex. The vibes of adjacent planes are closer, making passage between them comparatively easier. So, I'm guessing that the RG and the UG are close adjacent planes. Therefore, it's easy for Neku and all of them to converse with their RG, but the RG, which is at a lower plane than the UG, ironically enough, has a harder time conversing other way. More distant planes show greater differences in vibe frequencies, and thus communion becomes more difficult. The UG exists just above the RG. Hey, called it! Maybe I read that. Allowing those in the UG to observe the RG, but not vice versa. Noise exists on a special plane that straddles both the RG and UG, enabling their interference in the affair of both. When players become in contact with noise, they are drawn into the noise plane. In other words, players are forcibly tuned into the noise plane. Conversely, there exists an even higher plane than the RG and UG. That is where I am from, the plane of the angels. So yeah, godlike beings like Joshua. As in the RG and UG, angels have created a web of social schema to guide their activities. The role of the producer is just one cog in the angel machine. Angel vibes are extremely high frequency. Not even the composer can catch them all. In actuality, he can only pick up that of the producer. As you can see, interplanar contact is beset by difficulty. But certain modes do exist for realization. One is the modulator decal. Within its area of effect, players from the UG can manifest visibly in the RG and communicate with the others there. That is the decal that is on the stores that let me just buy stuff. Reapers and Composer can tune down their vibes at will. Near these decals, however, even their vibes will be forcibly adjusted to the lower frequency. So they are forced to be visible in stores, but outside of stores they can pick and choose if they want to or not. Another mode, imprinting, requires no physical manifestation in the RG. Imprintees experience the converted thoughts as a burst of inspiration. The reliability of these communiques thus depends on the person receiving it. So yeah, that is memes. For example, successful communication with preoccupied people is unlikely. Furthermore, recipients' interpretation of said inspiration recolors the message, making imprinting unreliable at best. Reaper Creeper was created as a mode of popular communication between the planes. Modulating paralogos imprinted on paper allow for limited UG interaction with real-ground objects. As those in the RG are unaware of players, they perceive the illusion of a coin moving by itself. Okay, so this was the last thing I read before I stopped and realized I should save this for a recording. That means that Reaper Creeper is pretty much the most consistent way of UG interacting with RG outside of the decals themselves. And you can only communicate with people that aren't inside these decal areas with people that aren't preoccupied. They need to be wanting information or wanting inspiration. Then we had the day when I had to, what was it? I had to make the red pin popular for Makoto. This is now all new stuff for me. I receive periodic communication from the composer. While we maintain contact, I am prohibited from providing him with information for risk of unbalancing the game. I am permitted only to respond to his commissions for certain items, and even then am I able to only to create and deliver said items. The composer has requested increased phone functionality for use in the next game. So yeah, because of the rules, Joshua is not able to ask for very game-breaking help. He can only ask for specific things, and they can only the specific things can be made for him. Today, the proxy's partner, one Shiki Misaki, freed herself from her defining value, envy. With this, the composer is convinced the proxy's victory on the 7th day. His confidence arises because of the proxy's intervention was indispensable in causing his partner's growth. It signals the proxy's departure from his obsessive self-actualization loop. Previously, even departure from his previously even the composer was unsure of his proxy's capacity for growth. So they picked they picked Neku because he had great potential, but they didn't even think, or they didn't really say it was likely for him to self-improvement, and he was just focused on himself, but he managed to snap out of it. Normally, the composer possesses a certain degree of clairvoyant foresight. His current down-tuned state, however, limits his abilities, clouding his supertemporal vision. Though able to observe the UG from the real ground, he is otherwise saddled with limitations. For one, his outward appearance. He looks younger than he would full vibe frequency within the UG. Fortunately, this prevents the Reapers from recognizing him as the composer. To begin with, the composer contacts Reapers only through the conductor, so most are unaware of what he looks like. Additionally, as the being of the underground with the highest vibe, some lesser Reapers are incapable of perceiving him. Okay, that's interesting. The effects of downtuning occurs because the composer's vibe and the RG's frequency are substantially different. For Reapers, the downtuning necessary to exist in the RG is significantly less, and thus affects less prominent changes. That said, it depends on the Reaper. At any state rate, the effect is minimal, making Reapers much more frequent visitors to the real ground. Provided they complete their duties, Reapers may do as they wish in the RG within certain accepted boundaries. So yeah, Reapers are basically granted free reign in the RG. With except I'm guessing they can't use their powers in the RG for their own gain, or else it would break society in some way or influence them. But yeah, so many of the Reapers don't recognize Joshua as Joshua just because they haven't been able to see him before in many cases. Now for the final day when we actually win. As the composer predicted, the proxy has won the game. So, what happens to those who survive the week? Those whose imagination is less than outstanding are broken down into soul, while those with excellent imagination become Reapers. The most talented of these may travel to the next plane, inhabited by us angels. Diligent Reapers too may pass through the office of composer to ascend to the plane of angels. So is that where Shiki was actually about to go when she literally ascended at the end cutscene of the first game? Was she actually about to go to the angel plane? Or was she just... Yeah, she was ascending and not descending, so I'm guessing that might have been the case. Now, what if? This may sound odd, but one may also choose to be reincarnated. Well, the word reincarnation is not quite accurate, for the humans of the UG are not truly dead. They merely possess different soul code and have been tuned into a different plane. We angels do not consider it a loss if a talented player elects to return to the real ground, as their superior inspiration will inspire other humans. Like for example, with Shiki, her returning to the real world or to the RG would mean her making clothes that would inspire a new generation of designers. Upon returning to life, the exceptional player's creative activities soon make their mark upon the society. Their art, music, and other outputs become a part of culture, spreading and persisting through time, refining people's imagination even without personal contact with the player. Certainly, this requires time, but no one has ever accused angels of being in a hurry. The composer's absence during this particular game, however, means that reincarnation is not an option. Oh. So, they basically, the only reason why they kept playing the game over and over again was not because that they said, oh hey, we're gonna keep people alive but then fuck you over in the last second. They were literally incapable of it and had to make rules or reasons to do so. So they probably already said they could only revive one person, that one person being Shiki, which then would be the game value or the price for Neko to continue the game, as an excuse to not bring her back to life. Only the composer possesses the level of imagination necessary to reincarnate. It is beyond the conductor's means. The conductor continues to act as if the composer were present, but this farce can only continue for so long. I will be watching with great curiosity to see how the conductor responds once this ruse unravels. As I was busy writing reports, the boy in my custody, Beat, went missing. Beat had expressed curiosity in how noise was created. Perhaps he plans to ask a Reaper, but without specific instruction from them, he has the ability now. But even without the specifically instruction from them, he has the ability now. I gave him a pin filled with the special imagination required to create noise, and imprinted him with the instruction for its use. This does not qualify as interference with the game. The information I gave him will have no impact on the game's results. It was merely a token of my esteem for his unflinching passion towards what he holds dear. Whether he uses this power and how is completely up to him. So, in saying the only reason why he feels like it doesn't interfere with the game is because Beat himself needs to want to use the power. And unless he does so, it doesn't matter. Okay, that is the first week. I'm actually going to take a little bit of a drinking break, so I'm going to be right back, hopefully with some new background music. Got something more to drink, and then I realized there's only one song in the menu, so I put in an OST. Let's keep going here. This is the day when we meet the composer and Joshua. As predicted by the composer, his proxy has entered the game for a second time. The proxy has proven his aptitude, and will be joined in the next game by the composer himself as his new partner. I pronounced that weirdly. There are 3 reasons behind the composer's choice of actions. 1. To ascertain the conductor's strategy. 2. To educate his proxy. 3. To protect him. Let me just work on the rhyme a little bit. With his return to the UG, the limits on the composer's abilities will be relaxed. However, using his abilities could reveal his identity. As such, he will need to continue to limit himself for a while longer. This presents a certain set of risks. The greatest risk, however, lies with the composer joining the proxy for this game. The composer's presence, his tremendously high vibe, will place a great deal of physical and psychological strain on the proxy. Oh, that is why we reacted so much when we were near to Joshua, whenever we tried to read his mind. Furthermore, the proxy's victory in the previous game has won him back his memory. The self-actualization loop behind the proxy is thus stronger than ever, more deeply ensconced even than the envy cleared from Shiki in the previous game. There is a possibility of the proxy's soul destabilizing, negating its progress during the previous game. Slight problems also persist with the proxy's personality. How long will the proxy be able to bear being side by side with the composer? About 7 days. Today, an alert was handed down. The discovery of a fallen angel. A fallen angel is one that has broken the angel's code. A criminal. The crime? Revealing the secrets of Taboo Noise Refinery to the Game Master, Minamimoto. Oh, so someone actually told Sho about how to make Taboo Noise, but they have not been shown. Minamimoto knows the composer's RG identity, secret to even the conductor, and has chased him to the real ground. The fallen angel may also have supplied him with this information. Minamimoto lusts to take the composer's place, and his potential to do so comes second only to that of the conductor. Despite being a complete outsider in the wager between composer and conductor, he stands to hinder the composer greatly. It is entirely possible that Minamimoto may rise to the office of conductor before this wager has been decided. So he could easily have replaced the old conductor if he just kept playing the Reaper game. All eyes on the higher plane are on this, or from the higher plane are on this game for the future of Shibuya. Should its result be invalidated by outside interference, the Angels' disappointment would be vast. So, what was the Fallen Angels' goal? Dominion over the Underground? Retribution against the Angels? Whatever the case, we must carefully monitor Minamoto's actions and stay vigilant against this fallen angel. And then we had Shooter lose Tinpin against our friends. And now we learn about who Cat is. I believe. I was finally able to hand over the phone tracking application the composer requested some time back. I informed the composer it was ready 3 days ago, but he apparently had no time to pick it up. It just shows how carefully the proxy is planning each move. The application detects the conductor's imagination. Oh. With it, one could walk around Shibuya and piece together the conductor's strategy. So that is why Joshua was looking around with his phone. At this point, even I cannot fathom the conductor's plan. I will have to rely on the information gathered by the composer. While I wait for his findings, I will work on the composer's next order, a second revision of the phone's functionality. Today also marks my first contact with the proxy since he formed a pact with the composer. He appears considerably wary of his partner at present time. Mainly because we think he killed us. As expected, the psychological strain is severe. So severe in fact that most players would be unable to continue. Right now, the only thing keeping the proxy in the game is his entry fee. At least his dangerously strained state of mind is acting to heighten his soul. I saw no sign of relapse or destabilization. Rather, the return of his memory seems to have yielded only positives. I look forward to watching the proxy's continued growth. Then we are going to explore Udagawa after Joshua helped us, so we're going to help him now. The composer's report indicate rough goings in his investigation. I suspect the limits upon his abilities. Meanwhile, Minamoto has not issued any missions. The Reaper elites must be alarmed as well. Perhaps this is more of the Fallen Angel's influence. As I've stated, Minamoto is suspected of a liaison with the Fallen Angel. The Fallen Angel may have chosen Minamoto for a few reasons. First, none desired the composer's office more. Minamoto's obsession was great enough to compel him to pursue the composers into the real ground. Unlike simple Reapers, however, the composer's power are not lost in the RG. I can just imagine the shock dawning on Minamoto's face as I write this. And that is in reference to when Joshua stopped the bullets right in front of him. And this also meant that Reapers lose their powers in their RG. Yes, the composer must down to their frequency to the real ground, limiting his powers. However, Minamoto is in the same boat. As a result, the difference in their abilities remained unchanged, thus the assassination attempt failed. While Minamoto's efforts were fruitless, they serve as an ample proof of his convictions. The second reason the Fallen Angel may have targeted him is his lack of loyalty to the Reaper's organization and his preference for solo action. His distance for cooperation means little chance of him revealing the Fallen Angel's presence. The third reason is his consistently unconventional aesthetic. His bizarre actions regularly cause a few confusion among those around him. Even if the Fallen Angel were to urge him to do something out of the ordinary, that would be the ordinary for him. No one would suspect a thing. This is why he is an ideal target for a Fallen Angel to work his agenda without raising suspicion. At least, it seems a logical conclusion. The question now is, why has Minamoto abandoned the game and what is he doing? I suspect that his only current objective is to take out the composer. If so, he is likely preparing for the 7th day and his opportunity to confront the players. Just what did the Fallen Angel tell Minamoto? Perhaps no one will ever know. Day 5. Oh yeah, this is now when Neku thinks Joshua killed him. He remembered that Joshua knew him, but not that he killed him. The proxy feels an affection for the art of the designer, Cat, myself. So he does confirm he is Cat. It's not just a theory. As he was picked by the composer, this is hardly coincidence. It was an inevitability. Cat's creative works are embedded with command codes. His art acts as a medium for mass imprinting. The imprinting players use only works only on an individual basis. However, through art, one can affect anyone who comes into contact with the work. I imbued my art with two command codes. The first is to enjoy the moment more. This strengthens the imagination. The proxy received this signal loud and clear, though past trauma precluded him from responding accordingly. The second code, Gather, calls to those with strong imaginations. Henceforth the inevitability. Why wouldn't the composer find his worthy proxy standing in front of my graffiti? A single reason exists for rigging my art this way. The creation of the future requires imagination. My art is widely accepted in Shibuya. This proves that those with imaginations sufficient to create the future are gathering in the area. Shibuya's future is looking very bright. That's actually clever. So, the only reason why Neku gathered there is because he was imprinted by the art. And because he was able to be imprinted by the art, that means his imagination is exceptionally high, which means he is a perfect candidate for Joshua. So he used that art for his own benefit. Now it is when all of the black noise or taboo noise is trying to kill everyone, including our friends and some Reapers. I have finished revision 2 of the phone tracking app, which allows you to detect the Shibuya River. The composer aims to use this device to convey the river's location to the proxy. Before passing that knowledge along, the composer needs to understand the conductor's plan. As of today, he felt confident in his hypothesis. The composer had encountered red skull pins everywhere the conductor had led. The same pins I created as to the conductor's behest on the first day. As I suspected, they form a prime piece of his strategy. The imagination he has filled those pins with is at the same that the player pin, imprinting. They are set apart, however, by a single major difference. The red skulls pins are made to imprint targets with the conductor's will. Anyone wearing the red skull pin is dominated by the conductor's mind. The further the pin spread, the more people he controls. However, the red skull pins have penetrated less than half of Shibuya's real ground population in the last 2 weeks. At this rate, the conductor's strategy will end in failure. How does he intend to penetrate the rest of Shibuya? I will be monitoring his actions closely. So, in week 1, day 6, me and Shiki, under the task of the bull, had to. I just can't really remember the bull's actual name, so I'm just gonna call him the bull. But we were told to spread the word of the pin, which was the red skull pin that Makoto had. And that red skull pin then spread to half of Shibuya because of our influence. Makoto got that task from his higher up, which was the guy that capes her like on Reaper Creeper. He probably got that task from the conductor, which is why it spread so much. And the way he got that task was through Reaper Creeper. And then for the final day, when we entered Pork City for the first and seemingly only time, the final day's mission came from the conductor: eliminate Minamoto. Unexpected as it was, tensions ran high, but the composer's quick thinking saved the day. In the end, all went according to his plans, and he successfully guided the proxy onto the next game. His solution entailed first defeating Minamoto, thereby ensuring the proxy's victory. Secondly, the composer pretended to be erased by Minamoto while shielding the proxy. To accomplish this, he fled to a parallel world just before Minamoto's final attack connected. That is the world we currently are in another world, another day. The proxy survived the game alone, but was again unable to elect a reincarnation due to the composer's illegal participation in the game. For better or worse, the game between the composer and conductor concludes in 1 week's time. The conductor strategy may end in failure, but we will see. I need to keep a close eye on his future actions. All I can do is wait for the composer to inform me of which parallel world he escaped to. And that is the world he is currently in too, and we didn't see him on the final day. And now we join the game with Beat and everyone else is gone. I've begun patrolling Shibuya in pursuit of the conductor strategy. While in Udagawa, I spotted Minamoto's Taboo's noise refinery sigil. Several types of these sigils exist in various categories, which we of the higher plane have classified. Not all of them, however, will work at the UG. Its vibe frequency is simply too low for them to translate properly. The sigil Minamoto drew was one of those undecodable types. Was that a mistake on the Fallen Angel part, or was it a transcription error by Minamoto? Either way, with that design, he stands little chance of reviving himself. However, Minamoto is driven, and his imagination is strong. Perhaps strong enough to make a taboo sigil work, even in the underground. If so, its specific results would be impossible to predict. Anything that might interfere with the composer and conductor's wager is to be avoided at any costs. I will personally neutralize Minamoto's sigil. Angels may not interfere in the Reaper's game, but this contest will decide Shibuya's fate. The higher plane cannot idly stand by. Meanwhile, the conductor has dealt one preemptive blow. The starting player count in his final game is 1. I cannot ascertain whether the conductor knows that Neku Sakuraba is a proxy, but this severe restriction is a number of entrants to ensure player erasure. In this flagrant abuse of his privilege, he has eliminated the threat of the proxy. With the composer in the parallel world, the proxy position is perilous. Still, as producer, I am bound by the rules. I can offer him no help. All I can do is guide him to Shibuya River. Call it luck or fate, even guided by proxy has managed to form a pact. Even by himself, the proxy managed to form a pact. His partner to beat, now a Reaper, who is himself fixated on reaching the river. As such, guiding the proxy will require little work on my part. Still, I haven't uncovered the conductor strategy for this final week. I still cannot relax quite yet. And now we get to 6 days. I love this mission, by the way. Get the false teeth from Ain't Sellin'. I literally just had to wait, enter the store we kept getting that line, and I got the false teeth. Oops, no, I pressed the wrong button. Oops, let me just skip. Yeah, for me to do everything, I need to skip everything, every time. And it could take some time, doing it like 10 times in a row. And now she's gonna kill her and turn her into a pin again. Trust me, I'm good at this game. Okay, back to here. It was this day, yes. The conductor has used Beat's betrayal as the excuse to issue an emergency call. With it, the composer's rules for the UG is essentially suspended. After weeks of concealing the composer's absence, the conductor finally has absolute authority. At the same time, he has made red skull pins mandatory for all Reapers. Now, most of Shibuya has a red skull pin. The stage has been set for the conductor's counterattack. Furthermore, he's cordoned off each area of the UG within walls. I could leave the UG, elevate my vibe, and pass through them quite easily. But to what end? I am bound to the UG, and thus my hands are tied. I cannot reach the composer, nor do I know which parallel world he is hiding. For now, all I can do is use my second sight to watch the game's progress. So he can watch the game without even being present. Now for a game of tag. Rather than head to Shibuya River, the proxy has begun wandering the streets, apparently in pursuit of the Game Master. Konishi, this round's Game Master, seems mainly interested in saving her own skin. She appears a loyal follower of the conductor, but the appearance of a promising candidate for a composer would quickly change her tune. At this point, she has been working hard to recover the conductor's trust after letting her slip the first day. Or after her slip the first day. She has issued a single 6-day mission, one that exploits Beat's greatest weakness, rhyme. Her plan is to panic the pair into committing some fatal error while keeping watch from their front row seat within Beat's shadow. This serves both to restore her standing with Conductor and to avenge the blow to our pride. Beat's greatest desire is to bring her back to life. Even if revived though, Rhyme still lost the game. Her entry fee is non-refundable. I do not know what the girl's entry fee was, but a life without it, the thing she held most dear, would be filled with grief and hardship. But is the void in one's heart caused by the loss never filled? I think it can be. It may take time, but something else will come along to fill that empty space. So long as one enjoys the present. In other words, we need more in the loss of which we hold dear, if only more people realize this. The composer did not impose the entry fee upon players to cause them anguish. In experiencing life without the thing that one most values, players are forced to re-examine just how crucial those things really are. The hope is that by the close of the game, players will be able to take a hard look at themselves and be able to take on the future with a new outlook on life. The entry fee exists to force players to see the truth about themselves. It is a test posed to composer to spur players' self-enlightenment. That makes sense, at least, at the very least for Neku and, honestly all the main characters. Shiki lost her own appearance, which showed how envious she was of her friends, and now she wants to live as herself, not as Rin, or whatever her name was. Beat cared about the Rhyme a lot, like beyond what he even himself thought he was capable of. And that showed that he's capable of caring and capable of doing stuff when he puts his mind to it, which he wasn't able to in life. And Neku was so self-centered by his own, like you can see by his own saying, the thing I have hold most valuable is my own memories, aka myself. When he lost himself, he realized how important others also were. And now time for the, what was it? The boxes? The conductor has begun his work with the Red Skull Pins. By bringing Shibuya's collective consciousness in line with his own work, he hopes to accomplish his goal of rebuilding Shibuya. The conductor's zeal is unparalleled among Reapers. His strong presence was central to the composer's ability to govern Shibuya, an area considered exceptionally chaotic even amongst the higher planes denizens. That the composer would consent to base his plans for Shibuya's destruction on a game with the conductor shows an unwavering trust in his subordinates. Yeah, so it says Joshua really trusts the composer despite him, doing all of this. The unification of minds in the natural state of the higher plane. It's a natural state of the higher plane. Given time, it might happen throughout the underground. The current UG, however, is not ready. People have erected walls around their minds, dividing their collective consciousness. They coexist independently, like the cells that make up a single human being. While the player pin holds the imagination strong enough to pass through those walls, the pin user's own barriers are strengthened. Were that not the case, the incoming flood of other minds could erode that user's own consciousness. Consequently, those who hold player pins cannot be scanned. Why does individuality exist? This is something the conductor has overlooked. Everything that exists has a purpose. Obsessed with this egoistic protection of Shibuya, the conductor has blinded himself to the facts. With his blind ego funneled into everyone in Shibuya, the city's destruction is not far off. So long as there is individuality, it is impossible to fully eliminate loneliness. There is no such thing as a shared reality. Even people who believe they share a connection are not truly connected. They must actually make contact, clash, and learn about each other through their foreignness. That's a weird way. A word. Foreignness. Differences should not be denied. They should be accepted and enjoyed. People must realize this if Shibuya is to be spared from destruction. Now everyone has fallen to the red pins, and we actually start realizing, hey, something fucky is going on. I detect an energy spike here. It seems that Minamoto has returned. I judge his revival unlikely after spotting his taboo refiner's sigil on the first day, but it appears Minamoto's imagination is much stronger than I had anticipated. The fallen angel must have completed the array for him. A troubling thought. Who can say what impact this will have on the composer and the conductor's game? Minamoto has one goal now, to find the composer and erase him. Minamoto has been tracking the composer's movements. He must know that the composer frequents this cafe. Chances are he'll pay a visit himself. As for the composer, I have yet to receive any words from him. Could the composer's abilities now be so limited that he cannot even reach me? I may have to contact myself in the parallel worlds to help search for him. Is that who we just met? A parallel one? Let me expand on the concept of parallel worlds. In life, reality is made up of continuous string of choices, and the consequences of those choices. Every time a choice is made, the option not selected branches off and exists as its own reality, a parallel world. Countless numbers of such parallel worlds exist within a single plane, be it in the RG or the UG, and travel among them is possible, though through the use of imagination. Theoretically, anyone can jump to a parallel world, but penetrating the membrane between worlds requires uptuning one's vibe. This limits the pool of being able to make the trip, or beings able to make the trip. Additionally, stress caused by breaking through the barrier can pull down the traveler's base vibe. If the vibe dips, the frequency may be too low to pass through the barrier. In the worst cases, it may render the traveler unable to return to his or her own original world. Conversely, angels are beings meant to jump between worlds. Thus, such travel is a simple matter. Angels have a higher base vibe than the frequency of the underground, allowing them to leave the UG, then tune their vibe to that of the desired parallel worlds. So, regular players, Reapers, etc. are not easily able to go to another world, if at all. But angels such as Joshua and Hanekoma are easily able to do so. And then the fight with Taboo Show. I have located the composer. He's an verbal Tinpin Slammer. Of all things, reign supreme. I am off to retrieve him. Minamoto has definitively targeted this shop, and I am not with friendly intentions. It is essential that I leave here immediately. I will leave the keypin to the Shibuya River for the proxy. He should know what to do from there. Shibuya's fate has been placed in the proxy's hand. It is no longer safe for me in the UG. My work here is done. All that remains is to retrieve the composer from the parallel world and bring him back to this one. And then for the final day. No! Give me an option to say select or not. Don't just put me in there. The composer defeated the conductor. The composer defeated the proxy. However, he stayed his decision to destroy Shibuya. It seems the course of the game has brought about a change of heart in the composer. Yes, Shibuya persists, but it is no longer the same city it was a month ago. In its stead, a completely new Shibuya has arisen. As the composer has changed, so Shibuya itself has metamorphosed. 1 month previous, Shibuya was plagued with problems, dire enough to motivate the composer to destroy it. Today, Shibuya has shifted into what we angels believe to be the optimal parallel world. To complete this puzzle, all of the pieces had to be set in their proper place. Even if one was incorrect, the entire picture would be ruined. Rhyme's selfless display of kindness, Higashisawa's bottomless career ambitions, Konishi's heart of stone, the conductor's will of action, born from the overflowing love. All of these were necessary if Shibuya was to be born anew. There are no extra pieces, no irrelevant components. Accept society as an ever-changing thing, and your mind will also become flexible. Individuals will link together and enact change throughout society. This is the only way to ride high upon the waves of this ever-changing world. It was no coincidence that the composer opted for this simple method in the end. My gratitude goes out to all of you. I greatly look forward to what this new Shibuya will become. Thank you. But that's not all, is it? That was report 22. This is report 20. We still have this one. What I'm going to do is try and get as close to the top of Pork City as I can. And I will include in the video if anything interesting happens.